Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back again with my weekly live stream. Just have a plan to go through Second Esdras, 3 chapters. Just get through them. I think they're perfect for me. Just the things that I've been focusing on in the last few days. These chapters are very, very relevant to that, and so it's been good for me to kind of review them and to see what they're describing and how it parallels, Revelation and, other books. And, I just have to do a somewhat minor correction, I guess, to last week. It's very, very minor. And I'm actually kind of surprised that I would even say it incorrectly, because it's something that I've just known and I can see happening in the world. And especially in lieu with all these different shootings and stuff and strikes and all this kind of stuff that's going on in the world, it doesn't seem like genuine, like beef between two groups. It just seems like a lot of it's staged and all that kind of stuff. And that's actually prophecy. And it's part of the thing that I said last week that, is just a slight correction. And then it will help us understand, 12, 13, and 14, and then also help us understand the book of Revelation. But the very minor thing I need to correct, I believe last week I said that in Revelation 11, 35, and while I looked, I saw the head on the right side devour the one on the left. I read that, and I believe I said that those are people on the right-hand side, but that's not true. And I should have sort of known that, just because if you go further down, you just read, "Therefore you, eagle, will surely disappear, you and your terrifying wings, your most evil little wings, your malicious heads, your most evil talons, and your whole worthless body." So all of this is God's left-hand side. I should have known that, because it's, in my life, even if someone didn't give me the Bible, I would have known, that all this fighting going on doesn't seem genuine. I don't know why people have all this beef with one another. And, it's just to execute the Bible, and God's plan. And a lot of it is just staged, and orchestrated and theater for us to see. But really behind the scenes, what's going on is a preparation for a war in heaven against God. And, that's actually what is exactly described here in 2nd Esdras 11, is this eagle with all these heads popping up and all of that. It's just a one world government. It's all of God's left-hand side, showing us, that they're arguing and stuff. But it's really just, they're all preparing, for this UFO invasion. And so that's the interpretation. And then we'll see more details of this in the next chapter, where we're given, an interpretation of these two heads and the eagle and all that kind of stuff. So just a very minor clarification on 2nd Esdras 11. And again, just know that all of this stuff that's happening is just God's left-hand side. So I'll read, I'll start with the Lord's Prayer. I don't know if there's much commentary really to say. My plan going forward, I'm definitely not going to be in these flat earth debates. I've just completely given up on that. I think that it's very, very clear to me that they're just there for sort of entertainment, and for us to take, the truth that the earth is flat and stationary away from it. It's not going to turn into like a movement or a spiritual revival or anything like that. Not that I really had an expectation for that, but it's just stale water. The earth is obviously not moving. I mean, that's just insane, really, that, anybody could have believed that, but that's enough for me, to know that the Bible's true, or at least, the Bible supports that and it's obvious. And, it's just, for me, I'm about to release a presentation on the book of Revelation, which I believe is comprehensive, fairly easy to understand for those people who are looking for those kind of answers, for a narrative and what's to come, and what's to come soon, and so it's very, very clear to me that something this year, next year, is going to be very, very evident, that the Bible is true, and, that the God of it is going to pay us a visit. And I believe the first event that will kick it off is a group of people, God's elect, being taken away. And then we'll also see that here in Second Esdras. And so that sequence of events that I'm going to document more clearly, going through the entire book from beginning to end, I will make it hopefully very, very clear for people to understand. And, just hopefully if it resonates with people who consume it, that's the way things are going to go down. And we shouldn't be surprised when we see it, even if it involves trouble, and peril, and hopefully not pain, but potentially pain for us. Like, we should know that it's God behind it, and just take comfort in that. And that's, to me, just an incredible courtesy and gift, because going through pain is one thing, but not knowing why it's happening, who's administering it, is it for anything bigger than what, we're going through? Those are things that are scary, for me. But, it looks like, just with what's going on in the world and, what is now obvious to me in the Bible, that this is, right at our doorstep, it's here. And so I'm not sure if I'll break it up in multiple parts. I mean, it's 22 chapters, pretty long book, but thankfully it's a repeat. It's just the same few sequence of events over and over again, and described in different detail. But just for people to even understand Esdras, and it's kind of good that I'm going through it now, it's that Second Esdras is the exact same. Like, if a person doesn't understand the sequence of events, like, first God's elect are taken away, then there's a 3.5-year tribulation period where God is testing the world, through the mark of the beast. And then God comes and it's God, it's wrath of God. It's God just cleaning up his left-hand side. All the people that remain are people who hate God, and God has programmed them to be that way, and they'll actually fight against God. And we'll see that again here in Second Esdras. So that's the sequence of events. And the only thing that's needed to kick that off is God's elect, taken away, quote unquote, raptured. And so once that happens, if we see that, with our own eyes, and then the Bible's true. There's no debate. I mean, if large groups of, like, homeless people are reported missing, and we will visually see it, because the Bible explicitly says that we'll see it, everybody worldwide, because the quote unquote rapture will take place from one end of the earth to the other. And so it'll be clear, that God is now visiting us, all of us. And, he's already have the sort of the cup that's filled for us filled, and we have to drink it, whether we like it or not. But I would just say, for all of us, let's have hope, that the God of the Bible is indeed real. And then his interaction with us, whatever it is just, and righteous, and for a purpose that we have no idea what it could possibly be, beyond what little he reveals to us, But I think that it'll be very clear from the way I go through that there's a lot of parallels, and then there's many parallels here. The same, narrative is happening here in Second Esdras. So we are reaffirmed of it everywhere, and then my plan after I get through that presentation is I'm just going to go through the Bible from beginning to end, kind of like just sort of double check anything, but then also look for other forms of support, and just for my own sort of edification, just reintroducing myself to the entire Bible. And so obviously for me, I have a huge focus and bias towards prophetic ones, verses, but I feel like all of it speaks to this kind of a narrative. So it's definitely time well spent, no matter what. But that's sort of my plan. And then, if I think of anything throughout that time, I'll obviously share it. But I would just ask for people to, take a look at the PowerPoint. I'll try and figure out a way to share the file as well, just so it's not, a video. People can open it up, make edits, and distribute it in a different way if they want, and, put in their opinion, their questions, and all that. We can interact, make it a quote collaborative thing. I think it's, again, very simple. Like, it's not, the book of Revelation was not meant to be that complicated. It's just meant to be complicated for people who don't get it, and God chooses not to reveal to them. If I'm correct, then God did it. It's not me. I didn't do anything for this, but I ask him, I definitely ask him every day. Why are we here? I definitely do. And I care. And so I believe that, it's worth considering, definitely what I share. Don't take it as quote unquote gospel, obviously. Consume it, compare it to what's going on in the world with what you think, and with the spirit that's interacting with you, all of that, it's those days for sure. I don't know the exact timing for sure, but we're definitely living in very, very spiritual days. It's very, very obvious, largely because of how not spiritual the earth is. And that has to be by design. It's just blatantly obvious. You look everywhere I look, there's nothing, spiritual, except for, the few times that I interact with people through these streams and, videos that I post and stuff like that. And I was listening to the Hebrews last night. I went to go see them face to face, and they're like yelling at people, like loud, just random people walking by. They're yelling at them as if they did something wrong to them. This whole world is just crazy. They're just literally out of their mind. No one wants to interact with God. He did not even once think to look up, and it's kind of funny because they're ball earthers. While I was listening to their street preaching, I looked up and I could see the moon. And then an hour later, the moon is moved, and then we couldn't see it anymore. They think that the earth tilted, while I was listening to them. And these are the people, this is religion, and it's not even necessarily a shot to them. It's the way it is everywhere. And so no one's looking up, no one's complaining to God. Hey, what's going on here? Why are we here? All of his complaints of the world were valid, but first and foremost, we always have to introspect and yell at ourselves the loudest for any amount that we've contributed to the imperfect nature of the world. And then God, that's the only person that has God has power over everything, and so this ecosystem was not architected by a human, and these are spiritual people. These are religious people who have certain truths about the Bible. They believe that that they're going to be, quote, rescued when missiles are in the air from Iran and those countries over to the US. And that's not in the Bible. America's destruction cannot happen until the gospel is preached to the four corners of the earth. That's in the Bible in multiple places. And so America's still got some time. It's not a quick destruction. God has a lot to do, and the reason I know that we're in those spiritual days is because he does have a lot to do. And America doesn't have that much time purely from a financial perspective, much less morally, religious, and all that kind of stuff. So that's just adding to the urgency that we have, that we're crying out to be rescued. But this is the world, that we live in. And so I don't expect anybody to take that presentation and just accept it, because the stuff that I teach already is very, very controversial and for a very, very few number of people. But, if one person out there receives it, that would be amazing, for me personally, because not that I would use that to validate it. I'm comfortable with it as it stands, because again, it's consistent with the Bible and with common sense and with what I see going on in the world, and what would be needed to see it fulfilled. But, it never hurts, to put it out there. It's obviously not a profit-driven channel ever, but, I would just request people to go through it carefully. And I tried to be as concise as possible, but it's a very, very heavy book. I would say the people that do receive it, and the cool thing for me in the last few days producing a document like that, is that the entire Bible makes way more sense now. It's just all the stuff that Jesus said. The whole book of Revelation does not seem confusing to me really at all, except for a couple minor things. It flows. It makes sense, that this is the times that we live in, and God's fingerprint, his DNA is all over it. The things that he's going to do to spread this gospel, he's going to do it in his way, in a meek way. He's going to use two people that no one would ever think to take them seriously. They're going to be, the Bible says, in sackcloth. They're going to look like bums, the way that the world would consider them bums. And but they're two of the most precious spirits to ever exist, in human history. And some people will listen and some people will get it. And hopefully my channel will remind people to take these people seriously. Like, this is not a joke. The times that we live in now there's nothing to joke about. I'm not saying that to scare anybody. It's for all of us. Like, trusting the government, if anybody does that even a slight amount, they're gone. Like, God will throw you in further. And I don't have any sympathy for people like that, because the government, their stories are ridiculous. Like, they're not even like slightly coherent anymore. They're just coming up on mainstream, and in many ways even just telling the truth now. That's how outlandish it's gotten. So outlandish, they just come and tell us the truth now. That the economy just benefits a few. It's not actually as great as they said, a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And that's much less all the NASA stuff and all that, all these stories of like bombings in different places and all that kind of stuff. Like, we don't even know why they're fighting. And like the whole narrative is falling apart for just that. But with the Bible in hand, the narrative makes perfect sense. And God is, merciful enough to show us that the UFOs are seeing what's going on. They're not strangers, anymore at all. And they're coming closer, for sure. And it's only going to intensify this year, where I believe God is going to start waking people up faster, And so I was just fortunate enough to, I would say, receive the book of Revelation early, but I'm assuming some people out there know, and the Bible actually explicitly says that there are groups of people that we don't even know exist on earth, and we'll read that in Esdras, that God has preserved the truth through them for many years. And they're off the grid, quote unquote, off the grid, and keeping his law. And that's sort of what I suspected. I couldn't obviously point to them, but now reading in Esdras, it's actually true that there is a group somewhere that God has hid, literally in places that no one has ever lived. So then when he looks down on earth, he actually sees people keeping the law, because it's obviously not happening here in America. And just for people who understand God's mind, he needs that for because he has aspects of characteristics like us. He needs to look on his creation and not be totally disgusted, and I'm adding to the disgust. I'm not cleaning my hands of that, but it makes sense, and so he has a remnant, he has people in different parts of the world that do care, about his law. It's just many of us here in America, we're realizing that we love his law because we've seen life without it, and we don't like it at all. And so, and we're not shy about it anymore. I just wish the Hebrews and others would have more common sense, not to yell at random people on the street, which is going to get them in trouble and potentially harmed, to direct it up, because God is the only person that could change that. That person that those people are yelling at, saying whatever, they're not going to change anything. It's just, you're just ruining your vocal cords. You're going to get arrested. You're going to get in trouble, from these people, and rightly so, because you're yelling at the wrong person, and then so people who have common sense, all of our qualms, with the world, direct them towards God, and I would just say that these are the days that we live in. There's no more government backing us up. No one's going to come and vouch for us. When God starts giving people plagues, turning the water into blood and all that kind of stuff. Again, this is not fear mongering. This is for me too. I don't necessarily need to be lectured, because if I see anything like that, I'm out of here. Like, I don't even care. Like, it wouldn't even matter if the Bible is true or not. I'm just not hanging around a place that already is retarded now, and I'm not going to hang around more. So I'm just friendly warning to maybe other people who are not as anxious to have the kingdom established that I have, but don't take the place seriously. That is evil now, and then that evil, God says he sets himself directly against that. And anybody who lines with that even slightly, he's against them, doesn't matter who it is. And so it looks like we're in those days. If it seems outlandish that there are two potentially homeless people, poor people walking around US that are Elijah and Moses, I don't know what to say. Like, that's in the Bible, and so, and it makes sense, because they are the only people who can teach the gospel, preach it correctly, and then share it worldwide. And so this will not be true unless it comes true, but just don't be shocked, if you see that kind of stuff on TV, where these two people are vilified, for the quote problems of the world, and it's put on their backs, because someone's got to take the blame for when this thing crashes and starts really, sinking. Talking about the entire global economy. Someone's going to take the blame for it. And God has made it so that the amount of evil that's in the world right now, he's going to direct it towards two people that represent him. And then they're going to be made the enemy. And this is the quote new world order. This is what everything is being laid towards. And then so those people will be vilified, and then they'll quote overthrow them and believe that they've accomplished something. And then that's when God comes in, and so those are his two precious spirits. And then all of his people will be taken away at that point. And then it's just a clean cleansing of the earth. And so we're living in those days. Okay. So Matthew 6:9-15. But just keep that sequence of event in mind, because this lesson won't make sense. And then anything that I have shared recently also won't make sense. And, but just, it's very simple, and again, challenge it, obviously interact with the Bible and question it. But that's the way it's going to go down. It's there's a salvation for a select group. There's going to be a 3.5-year period that is very fixed. It's not variable. It's set in stone, where the world will be tested, with the mark of the beast. And then exactly on that day, 1,260 days later, those witnesses will be killed. The world will rejoice like they accomplished something great. This satanic world that we live in will kill God's left and right hand spirit, think that that's something good. And then God will come in and just destroy everything, because he has now sifted his entire world. And he's merciful enough to give everybody a quote unquote chance. You don't have to be a Bible scholar, all that kind of stuff. He's going to make it obvious, and he's going to reveal things to people. I believe in that time period, there's going to be a lot of spiritual stuff. People are going to start seeing things, visions. God will interact with people directly. UFOs will be in the sky. It's going to be, that will be the most quote spiritual time ever in human history, on the evil side, but also on the righteous side, in terms of God revealing things to people, but he's also going to plead with them with pain and fear and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I believe we're on the precipice of. Matthew 6:9-15 reads, "After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." If no one else, hallowed be thy name, who cares? Those people don't exist. We have to be in a very sort of focused mindset in the times that we live in. "Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." God is the only person that can deliver us from evil. "For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your sins." And I believe that he is faithful, even if people have grudges in their heart, but we're going to pay for it in some way. And God has set a 3.5-year pressure cooker, and that's where everybody's going to pay for it. And I just warn people, there's no reason to make this harder than it needs to be. It's one way or another, righteousness will abound on earth. It's a fact. Either it's going to we're all going to sort of die and kill ourselves, and it's just going to be the worst thought that some God has ever had ever. Or it's a place, this is a pressure cooker that this evil is intensifying on purpose up to a point, and then to prepare people for the kingdom of heaven, and I believe that is not far away. And, that's an amazing thing. But just keep in mind this sequence of events is that a large group of people will be taken away, at least 144,000 men and women. So a large group, God's first fruits, the group that he's chosen to exempt from the tribulation. That from that day, that moment, which will be very obvious because it's in the sky, from that day forward, the clock is ticking on the earth and the rulership on earth. It's going to be 1,260 days, 3.5 years. And there'll be two people somewhere in America who will look homeless, but they will be the two most precious spirits next to Jesus Christ. And if for people who understand reincarnation, and you have to really now to understand the Bible, it's John the Baptist and Moses. And so God is going to plead with us, just like he's done that in the past, in other generations, in other times. We've just lived in a very, very non-spiritual time for many years, but that will not continue on, and I just think that God is making it clear to people. And all we can do is just encourage each other first, that this has a narrative, and then, just do what we can to not make it more painful than it needs to be. Looks like we have a Mandela effector in the chat. The Lord's Prayer to you: trespass is not debts to your member in earth and debts. It's funny, actually, I was going to mention Mandela in my Revelation PowerPoint, because there are some verses that people could use to support that. I'm not going to put that in that presentation, but if people want to talk about it offline, I can point out where somebody could use that, use that effect. So if it's real, God is behind it. My only issue with that is that, in the lieu of what I've just been saying, it's a very low level truth. If it is one, I don't think it's real, but let's just say it is. It's very low level. That's not, you will not like any of that, my presentation, if Mandela effect interests you at all. It's just in lieu of what I'm sharing in that it's the timeline of the end times, and we're living in it, right now. And like the UFOs and all these things are things that God wants us to think about, not these like Mandela effect and even really flat earth anymore. It's not relevant anymore. To me, those days have passed. We've all used that potentially to increase our faith, hopefully, and that kind of thing, and then it's now a time where the Bible says God is going to plead with everybody individually, and it's a good idea to get focused on the things that he's focused on. And so I keep reminding people about the poor, not that we can change the status of the poor, but God hides himself in the poor. And people who look at two people on TV or in real life and they look poor and they just look like they're homeless and bums and don't recognize and can very clearly see that that's God and God's work, then the gospel will just be lost. You'll end up believing what's in the news and whatever your local pastor says, whatever Ken Hovind or Pastor Anderson says. They don't understand God's heart, and his mind and the way that he works, because he would have showed them the way that the book of Revelation is going to manifest. And a lot of it is focused on here in America, and America is not on the rise. As much as Pastor Anderson teaches that America will be destroyed, but he still thinks it's going to go and do a lot of quote damage in the Middle East. That's not the case. It's on a decline, and it's steep. It's very steep, and but it looks like, I thought it was steeper than it was. And it looks like God is flattening out a little bit in order to have the gospel preached to the entire world, which is a promise. And it has not been preached to the entire world yet. And so, those are the times that we live in. So don't worry about Mandela effect. If Mandela effect woke you up, you're still asleep. I'm sorry to say that. Not trying to be rude, but if Mandela effect has done anything at all to quote wake you up, you're still asleep, man. But still check out my PowerPoint if you want. It might help. 2 Esdras 12. So again, keep in mind the sequence of events. It will be reiterated here. While the lion was saying these words, so again, we have a lion and an eagle. This is the interaction in Esdras. The lion represents Jesus Christ and his appearance and his judgment now on earth. And this eagle represents all of the sort of power structures in modern day rising up. And then the eagle is used on purpose to represent America. And then it has all these little heads that pop up, and they have their own mini dominions through smaller wings. And now we're seeing the end of it, literally in the days that we live in. And it's, again, very, very obvious. America is a major superpower. And, the clock is ticking on its power, and its ability to do all these things, worldwide, all the sanctions and all the wars, and whether they're real or not, that's coming to an end. But verse 12 starts off with the lion, which just know is Jesus. While the lion was saying these words to the eagle, I looked and saw that the remaining head had disappeared. The two wings that had gone over it rose up and set themselves to reign, and their reign was brief and full of tumult. When I looked again, they were already vanishing. The whole body of the eagle was burned, and the earth was exceedingly terrified. And so there's two heads that have popped up, and one of them has destroyed the other. And that is all those countries essentially in the Middle East. And so there were three heads. One of them is actually gone. I believe it's referring to like the lowering of the European sort of domination. And so this other head is like Russia, all the countries over there, North Korea and all that kind of stuff, China and all them that are now the ones that God will use to destroy America. And so it's going to be a very, very brief rulership in this 3.5-year tribulation time period that these countries will be quote unquote ruling, because America will be on the decline. And so that's why it's saying here that the reign was brief and full of tumult. The tumult is that 3.5-year tribulation period. When I looked again, they were already vanishing. So now the two are being brought low, and the whole body of the eagle was burned, and the earth was exceedingly terrified. This is God. This is Jesus Christ coming on UFOs, actually destroying both of those power structures that remain. And just know this was the correction from chapter 11. Both of those power structures are on God's left-hand side. So they're all just infighting amongst themselves. Like we're not into that kind of stuff. Like the right-hand side does not get involved in all these kind of wars. This is God doing this for his purposes. And then they know that there's going to be a cold war in heaven. Okay. Then I woke up in great perplexity of mind and great fear. And I said to my spirit, you have brought this upon me because you search out the ways of the Most High. I am still weary in mind. I am still weary in mind and very weak in my spirit, and not even a little strength is left in me because of the great fear with which I have been terrified tonight. Therefore, I would now entreat the Most High that he may strengthen me to the end. Then I said, O sovereign Lord, if I have found favor in your sight. So now he's looking for interpretation of this vision. And if I have been accounted righteous before you beyond many others, and if my prayer has indeed come before your face, strengthen me and show me, your servant, the interpretation and meaning of this terrifying vision, so that you may fully comfort my soul. For you have judged me worthy to be shown the end of the times and the last events of the times. So he knows that he's seeing the end. And it's scary for him because he's never seen any of these kind of things before. So he's pleading for understanding. But he does know that it's not just the quote end times, it's the very last things that are happening in the end times. America being destroyed, and then the remaining power structures also being destroyed. Verse 10, he said to me, this is the interpretation of this vision that you have seen. The eagle that you saw coming up from the sea is the fourth kingdom that appeared in a vision to your brother Daniel, but it was not explained to him as I now explain to you, or I have explained it. The days are coming when a kingdom shall rise on earth, and it shall be more terrifying than all the kingdoms that have ever been before it. And 12 kings shall reign in it, one after another. But the second said that it is to reign, shall hold sway for a longer time than any other one of the 12. This is the interpretation of the 12 wings that you saw. As for your hearing a voice that spoke coming not from the eagle's head, but from the midst of his body, this is the interpretation. In the midst of the time of that kingdom, great struggle shall rise, and it shall be in danger of falling. Nevertheless, it shall not fall then, but shall regain its former power. As you're seeing 8 little wings clinging to its wings, this is the interpretation. 8 kings shall arise in it, whose time shall be short and their years swift. So this is, again, speaking of America raising in power and all the different sort of power structures leading up to it. 8 kings shall arise in it, whose time shall be short and their years swift. 2 of them shall perish when the middle of its time draws near, and 4 shall keep for the time when its end approaches, but 2 shall be kept until the end. So there will be 2 major power structures in the end times. It's America against literally all the other countries, and that is consistent with the book of Revelation, where all these other countries will turn their back on America. And that is the narrative that's in the book of Revelation. And again, we're seeing that here in 2nd Esdras. As for your seeing 3 heads at rest, this is the interpretation. In its last days, the Most High will raise up 3 kings, and they shall renew many things in it, and shall rule the earth and its inhabitants more oppressively than all who were before them. Therefore they are called the heads of the eagle, because it is they who shall sum up his wickedness and perform his last actions. As for you seeing the large head disappeared, one of the kings shall die in his bed, but in agonies. So this is the European, I believe, the European center of mass. This is another group will be, Russia and essentially all those countries in the Middle East and America. And so this, I believe, is one of the kings. If you just Google a king that died in his sleep, this is one of the kings in Europe. And we've seen that, the European strength is lower, and it's been sort of handed over to America. They used to print the dollar. They used to have their own pound. They used to be the reserve currency. And then now it's us, America. And so the two remaining are America and then all those other group of countries over there. But as for the two who remain, the sword shall devour them. But for the sword of one shall devour him who is with him. So that's describing America getting destroyed first. Then it also says, but he also shall fall by the sword in the last days. And so God then will have a battle in Armageddon where he then destroys the remaining power structure. And so all that stuff in the Middle East near the Euphrates and all that kind of stuff, that will be the site of the final destruction of God's left-hand side. Verse 29, as for your seeing two little wings passing over to the head, which was on the right-hand side, this is the interpretation. It is these whom the Most High has kept for the eagle's end. This was the reign which was brief and full of tumult, as you have seen. And so this is, again, God is giving, of these two heads, he's giving one of them on the right-hand side, these two wings, which will be the last amount of dominion and power over the earth, because America has just been destroyed. And so he's sort of saving them, keeping this one up, for the final destruction of the entire eagle, which represents all the power structures on earth. And then if you understand Revelation, and I talk about it in my PowerPoint, the entire power structures on earth are going to be destroyed and replaced with Jesus Christ himself. That is essentially the entire narrative of the whole book of Revelation. Verse 31, and as for the lion whom you saw rousing up out of the forest and roaring and speaking to the eagle and reproving him for his unrighteousness, and as for all his words that you have heard, this is the Messiah whom the Most High has kept until the last days, who will arise from the offspring of David and will come and speak with them. He will denounce them for their ungodliness, for their wickedness, and will display before them their contemptuous dealings. For first he will bring them alive before the judgment seat, and when he has reproved them, there he will destroy them. He's talking about God himself destroying a majority of people on earth, and all of them will be on God's left-hand side. That is his quote-unquote judgment seat. But this is a very important verse. It's not necessarily sequential, but it's important to know this. But in mercy he will set free the remnant of my people, those who have been saved throughout my borders, and he will make them joyful until the end comes, the day of judgment of which I spoke to you at the beginning. So there's a group, again, that we're going to be taken out. And like it says here, they will make them joyful until the end comes. So he's kind of going back in time saying, I promised to do all this, but he's going to remove a few people out who will not experience this, all this judgment. This is the dream you saw. Again, this is consistent with Revelation. This is the dream that you saw, and and this is its interpretation. And you alone were worthy to learn this secret of the Most High. So again, I'm not saying this to sound arrogant, but I already know that this stuff's not interesting to people. Esdras in this case is receiving, he's the only one that is getting this understanding. Obviously, he's going and passing it on to other people, but this stuff is just not interesting to most people. No one really cares. They're not even necessarily bad people, but for those who do, I think it'll be good news, because these days, those things are going to come to pass shortly. Therefore, write all these things that you have seen in a book, put it in a hidden place, and you shall teach them to the wise among your people, whose hearts are able to comprehend and keep these secrets. Again, at this time, these are secrets. Now it's broadcast to everybody, but God is already saying there's only going to be a certain people who will be interested in that, and he programs all of us to even care about the Bible. But as for you, wait here 7 days more, so that you may be shown whatever it pleases the Most High to show you. Then he left me. Verse 40, when all the people heard that the 7 days were past and I had not returned to the city, they all gathered together from the least to the greatest and came to me and spoke to me, saying, how have we offended you, and what harm have we done that you have forsaken us and sit in this place? For all the prophets, you alone are left to us, like a cluster of grapes from the vintage, and like a lamp in a dark place, and like a haven for a ship saved from a storm. Are not the disasters that have befallen us enough? Therefore, if you forsake us, how much better it would have been for us if we also had been consumed in the burning of Zion. So these people are like looking for leadership. They're like, where'd you go? But, Esdras needed this time, to receive this revelation and really process what he was receiving from God directly. Therefore, if you forsake us, how much better it would have been for us also have been consumed in the burning of Zion, for we are no better than those who died there. and they wept with a loud voice. Then I answered them and said, take courage, O Israel, and do not be sorrowful, O house of Jacob, for the Most High has you in remembrance, and the Mighty Ones has not forgotten you in struggle. As for me, I have neither forsaken you nor withdrawn from you, but I have come to this place to pray on account of the desolation of Zion and to speak mercy on account of the humiliation of our sanctuary. Now go to your homes, every one of you, and after these days I will come to you. So the people went into the city as I told them to do, but I sat in the field 7 days, as the angel had commanded me, and I ate only of the flowers of the field, and my food was of plants during those days. So Esdras is just, he's close to God. There's nothing else to say. He's just pious. He does exactly what God says, and so God can trust him with this revelation. Yeah, no problem, Mies. Good to hear from you, man. What do you remember laying with the lamb without checking? Honestly, don't know how you haven't seen. It's so Mandela effect, I guess, is the big thing now. So, I mean, it's just I'm not trying to be rude, but that will not. No one cares. I definitely don't care about that here, unless just to sort of make fun of it, I guess. That kind of stuff, again, like I said, is very, very low. It's a low vibration in the times that we live in now. If we lived in different times, it might be interesting, but that presentation that I'm presenting and what I'm reading here is describing, if you're in America, if you look outside, all of that being burned, by intercontinental ballistic missiles. So Mandela effect will be erased. All the memory that's used to remember and forget things won't matter too much, when you're drinking water that has blood in it, and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to be rude, but this is not a good place for that. 2 Esdras 13. After 7 days, I dreamed a dream in the night, and lo, a wind arose from the sea and stirred up all its waves. As I kept looking, the wind made something like a figure of a man come out of the heart of the seas. And I saw that this man flew with the clouds of heaven, and wherever he turned his face to look, everything under his glaze trembled. And whenever his voice issued from his mouth, all who heard his voice melted as wax melts when it feels the fire. This is what's happening. This is the days that we live in, where when God comes, he's not shooting candy from the sky, for sure. Verse 5, after this I looked and saw that an innumerable multitude of people were gathered together from the four winds of heaven to make war against the man who came up out of the sea. This is now, again, a vision of the very, very end. People have the audacity to go and fight against God. And, this is the end times. This is the times that we live in. And I looked and saw that he carved out for himself a great mountain and flew up on it. And I tried to see the region or place from which the mountain was carved, but I could not. This is God setting himself up, perching himself up to fight against the God's left-hand side, this innumerable multitude, this army. Verse 8, after this I looked and saw that all who had gathered together against him to wage war with him were filled with fear, and yet they dared to fight. So they know that this is over. Just think about this. If any of us, if we're looking up, and just anybody who's up flying around, they have a huge advantage because they can see everything, and then they're not just flying in airplanes, they're flying in UFOs, which have technology that we don't even understand. We can't even decide whether water curves or not. And so they know that they're going to lose. But again, this is the movie. This is the movie that we live in. This is God's narrative. It's just fair warning about what's going to happen. After this, I looked and saw that all who had gathered together against him to wage war with him were filled with fear, and yet they dared to fight. When he saw the onrush of the approaching multitude, he neither lifted his hand nor held a spear or any weapon of war. These crafts that they're flying in are not anything that we can understand. But I saw only how he sent forth from his mouth something like a stream of fire, and from his lips a flaming breath, and from his tongue he shot forth a storm of sparks. They're just zapping people. Yeah, if anybody has seen any of these kind of movies, Independence Day and all that, again, it's not something that we would even understand. All these were mingled together, the stream of fire and the flaming breath and the great storm, and fell on the onrushing multitude that was prepared to fight, and burned up all of them, so that suddenly nothing was seen of the innumerable multitude, but only the dust of ashes and the smell of smoke. When I saw it, I was amazed. He's just zapping everybody. All these people will have the mark of the beast. Verse 12, after this, I saw the man come down from the mountain and call himself another multitude that was peaceable. This is the part where I'm not saying this to brag in any way, but I sort of had a sense that this was true, that there are people somewhere on earth that no one even knows and just living off the land that obey the law, strictly. And there's no freaking Kardashians being played. There's no like nonsense, no mark of the beast over there or anything like that. And this makes sense. God would not have the entire earth disobey the law. He would always just, again, I'm not pretending to know, I know everything about God, but just for us, we would not let his law just be completely defiled everywhere on earth. And we're being told here that is not the case, that he did have people who preserve it. And so this is what Esdras is seeing. After this, I saw the same man come down from the mountain and call himself another multitude that was peaceable. They're hidden away. They're still on earth, but they were not hurt during this time. Then many people came to him, some of them who were joyful, some sorrowful, some of them were bound, and some were bringing others as offerings. So they had a mixed feeling about this, but some were waiting for this. They know that this is the time where God is visiting the world. The interpretation of the vision. Then I woke up in great terror and prayed to the Most High. From the beginning, you have shown your servant these wonders and have deemed me worthy to have my prayer heard by you. Now show me the interpretation of this dream also, for as I consider it in my mind, alas, for those who will be left in those days. And still for those, alas, for those who are not left. So now Esdras is going through all the scenarios like, hey, what about the people who are not seeing this? What about the people who are? And he's just like, man, like he doesn't know which one he would want to be. But alas, for those also who are left, and for that very reason, they shall see great dangers and much distress as these dreams show. Yet it is better to come into these things, though incurring peril, than to pass from the world like a cloud and not see what will happen in the last day. So in his mind, he reconciles that he'd prefer to be there. He'd want to actually see what he's seeing manifest in real life. And so that's just his own personal opinion, and what he feels comfortable with. I think people can make solid arguments for both, but he's saying ultimately, even though it's painful for us, it is a blessing if we are living in the end times, and then we're declared on God's right side because we're now a part of it. We're a character, we're a small character, but we're a part of it, and we should be honored that is the case, again, if we're on the right-hand side. And if we don't take the mark of the beast, we can have comfort that is the case. Verse 21, he answered me and said, I will tell you the interpretation of the vision. I will also explain to you the things that you have mentioned. As for what you said about those who survive and concerning those who do not survive, this is the interpretation. The one who brings the peril at the time will protect those who fall into peril, who have works and faith towards the Almighty. So again, he's reminding, and this is in other places, that people who have faith and work stored up, they will be exempt from this. There is a group, you can label them whatever you want. The Bible calls them the elect, 144,000 virgins. They have no guile. They're innocent. They follow God wherever he goes. So we don't follow Jesus here physically, but people who follow him wherever he goes spiritually, this is the group. And they obviously have to have works, faith and works, like the book of James teaches. They're not just hooting and hollering. They're not getting any points for just simply quoting Bible verses, and I'm speaking to myself. Verse 24, understand therefore that those who are left are more blessed than those who have died. So again, God is actually affirming that, yeah, that is the case, it's uncomfortable, especially if we're in those days, that it is a blessing, because we are part of this movie. And I think the biggest blessing is that we know we're in it. We all know this. It's not a mystery anymore. I say it freely. I know that I'm in a movie. We all know this now. And this Bible is narrating it. Verse 25, this is the interpretation of the vision. As for you're seeing a man come up from the heart of the sea, this is whom the Most High has been keeping for many ages, who will himself deliver his creation, and he will direct those who are left. And as for your seeing wind and fire and a storm coming out of his mouth, and as for this, not holding a spear or a weapon of war, yet destroying the onrushing multitudes, that came to conquer him. This is the interpretation. The days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth. Always first. The sequence stays the same. In every aspect of the end times, it's always in the correct sequence. And this is the same thing here. First, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth. There are a group, that term is being used elsewhere, that will be delivered. Don't be surprised, and I just say this in a friendly way now, if there's a lot of homeless people and so-called black people, and don't be a racist idiot. Like these are God's people. You know, Jesus is black. And don't be offended by this. I'm not saying it's only black people. It's going to happen everywhere around the world. The Bible says that there's people going to be taken out of China, out of India, Europe, Turkey, everywhere, Africa, everywhere. You know, God's people are literally everywhere. There's people that we didn't even know that they existed, you know, in parts that we didn't even know people inhabit. And so I'm not saying this to be racist, but people here in America, don't be offended, you know, and if people have to go through the tribulation, and there's two people who are dressed in sackcloth, they look like bums, and the news is vilifying them as like, cool, bad people, look at all the stuff they're doing. Don't be shocked, you know, that's those are God's representatives. Okay, so that's the delivering in verse 29. And bewilderment of mind shall come over those who inhabit the earth. So this is the ushering in of the mark of the beast. So verse 29 says, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth. The world's going to be like, what just happened? You know, that was like some kind of alien, you know, or whatever. And then so it says, and bewilderment of mind will come over those who inhabit the entire earth. The whole world will be like, what just happened there? You know, and then they're going to make up some story like, oh, people were taken away. We need to chip you so you're not lost and we can track you and all that kind of stuff. That is going to be the ushering in of officially the one world government and the mark of the beast being forced. Aliens are not demons. All these people that come here, I already know what's going on, you know, like that's not true. You don't understand that we're living in the most evil system that has ever existed, according to the Bible, ever. This is the most evil on earth, feet on the ground, not angels or anything flying in the sky. This is the most evil that God can construct. You know, and I'm talking about, look at the religious people. They don't have any idea what's going on. They're flat earthers talking about Mandela effect. You know, like what other evidence do we need? You know, and then we have videos after, and this is an extreme example, but we have flat earthers sitting talking about who's dating who, you know, Patricia Steer, who she's dating and all that kind of stuff when they claim to believe the earth is flat. So the aliens and the demons are here, and some of them might be in this chat. So don't get swayed. And don't lose sight of this fact. Everything evil and demonic is going on here on earth. This is the most creatively evil God can be, is what's happening going on here on earth. Just watch the news. just have some idea of what's going on. There are poor people sleeping outside here in Houston, like just lining down the streets of downtown Houston. And we have like thousands of vacancies, you know, everywhere, you know, in different apartment buildings and stuff like that. It's like that everywhere around the world. This, again, is the most demonic that the world can get. And the most demonic are the religious people. The people, again, that come in these chats, the few people that come by, claim to have some religious understanding and start talking about Mandela effect. You know, when I'm walking people through the end times, you know, in the sequence of the end times as revealed in the book of Revelation and the entire Bible. So this is the world that we live in. And then we have Hebrews who claim to be Israelites yelling at random white people walking by, telling them that, you know, they're pedophiles and all that kind of stuff. They're just yelling at random people that walk by, and they claim to be the chosen people of God. This is hell, you know, that we're living in. Let's not make it more hellish. The days are coming. Sorry, I'll read it again. The days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on earth. First step. Next, bewilderment of mind shall come over those who inhabit the entire earth. So this salvation will happen from one end of the earth to the other. They shall plan to make war against one another, city against city, place against place, people against people, and kingdom against kingdom. That's happening right now. When these things take place and the signs occur that I showed you before, then my son will be revealed, when you saw as a man coming up from the sea. And so this, again, is very, very important because it's showing us, it's giving us a glimpse into the very, very first set of events that are happening in the end times. And ultimately, the very, very first thing that we, quote, look out for, and the Bible says, every eye shall see him, even those that pierced him. It will not be ambiguous when Christ makes his first appearance in UFOs. And it's going to be to do what verse 29 says, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth. Everybody else, if we're on there, we have to die. And then as long as we don't take the mark of the beast, we're on God's right-hand side. Verse 33, then when all nations hear his voice, all the nations shall leave their own lands and the warfare that they have against one another, and an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together as you saw, wishing to come and conquer him. And so the elect are taken away. There's a tribulation period of just chaos and the mark of the beast. And then they're all going to be lured through these two witnesses to Armageddon, a place that this battle will take place. And there will be essentially Christ will have his UFOs and his group waiting there, and people will know that it's a foreign thing. And then they will all join together and band together under this umbrella of quote New World Order. He'll be parked there. He'll be literally waiting for them. And again, these are all actors. These are all people on the left-hand side. They just have all the microchip. They're just robots, and God's just zapping the place. And so all the evil's done, at that point. There's no more evil after that, and for anybody with common sense would look forward to that, because then you have the architect of this whole earth who's now cleaned the whole place, scrubbed it, with bleach, burned it. And then we only have his creative side towards goodness, and good things, pleasurable things. And so we want to be a part of that group. We're anxious for this. So the innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as you saw, wishing to come and conquer him. This is how evil the world is. They won't even ask. They won't even stop and just not fight and be peaceful. Hey, what are these things? They'll just start shooting at them, And so again, this is the world that we live in. Everybody's brain dead. But he shall stand on the top of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come and be made manifest to all people, prepared and built as you saw the mountain carved out without hands. Then he, my son, will reprove the assembled nations for their ungodliness. This was symbolized by the storm, and will reproach them to their face with their evil thoughts and torments with which they are to be tortured, which were symbolized by flames, and will destroy them without effort by means of the law, which was symbolized by fire. So this is the torment that people talk about when they talk about quote unquote hell. This is it, the smoke will just continue on, and they're going to experience hell, and this is their final judgment. We don't want to be a part of that. Everybody that's receiving this is on God's left-hand side. Verse 39, and as for your seeing him gather to himself another multitude that was peaceable, these are the 9 tribes that were taken away from their own land into exile in the days of King Hoshea, whom Shalmaneser, king of Assyrians, made captive. He took them across the river, and they were taken into another land. We'll also see, this is very important actually, and ties into the book of Revelation, the 2 prophets, the 2 witnesses, in one of their final plagues, they're going to be setting up a pathway for people to travel. And so these 2 people that people will think are just bums on the street are changing the earth, and then they're making a way for these people. And this is again in the book of Revelation. This is all consistent. But they formed this plan for themselves that they would leave the multitude of the nations and go to a more distant region where no human beings had ever lived. This was God's design. He needed a group, a remnant that will continue doing his law, even though the rest of us in the world, the law has been completely trampled. And for people that can understand reincarnation, we are receiving different amounts of judgment, based on what we've done in the past. God dips us into Babylon to a different amount. Some people live longer, some people live shorter. And then I would suspect the longer life is actually a greater judgment of evil. But they formed this plan for themselves that they would leave the multitude of the nations and go to a more distant region where no human beings ever lived, so that there at least they might keep their statutes that they had not kept in their own land. So again, God is preserving this very, very special group of people. And they went in by the narrow passage of the Euphrates River, for at that time the Most High performed signs for them and stopped the channels of the river until they had crossed over. This is in book of Revelation. In chapter 11, the 2 witnesses are doing this. They're actually changing the ecology, the landscape, the terrain to facilitate this, and that's written there. For at the time, the Most High performed signs for them and stopped the channels of the river until they had crossed over. Through that region, there was a long way to go, a journey of 1.5 years, and that country is called Arzareth. So he's going there and meeting people there essentially, and then performing miracles for, I'm assuming, as a reward, for them keeping the statutes, and so there are places on earth that we don't even know exist, and again, God's looking down. He sees everything, obviously. So we have no idea, what's really going on, honestly. We don't even know what's going on here, stuff that we can see, much less, all these hidden lands that God uses. And I'm sure he's interacting with them regularly. I'm sure a lot of them are receiving, healing and stuff. They don't have doctors, and that kind of thing. So who knows what they know, they probably know the earth is flat and then a whole bunch of other things. So We're just the morons here. Verse 46, then they live there until the last times. And now when they are about to come again, the Most High will stop the channels of the river again so that they may be able to cross over. Therefore, you saw the multitude gather together in peace. These are God's right-hand side. But those who are left of your people who are found within my border shall be saved. He's saying it's those people, and then there's another group that will be saved. So he's saying that both are on the right-hand side, but this group is just a special group that wasn't quote unquote raptured, but he's bringing them out during this time after the left-hand side has been destroyed. Therefore, when he destroys the multitude of the nations that are gathered together, he will defend the people who remain, and he will show them very many wonders. So he's got something planned for them, and I'm assuming, again, it's a reward, for their faithfulness. Verse 51, I see, O sovereign Lord, explain this to me. Sorry, I said, O sovereign Lord, explain this to me. Why did I see the man coming up from the heart of the sea? Verse 52, he said to me, just as no one can explore or know what is in the depths of the sea, so no one on earth can see my son or those who are with him, except in the time of his day. People who claim to know how deep the earth is, they don't even know how deep the water is, and what's down there, according to the Bible. This is the interpretation of the dream that you saw, and you alone have been enlightened about this, because you have forsaken your own ways and have applied yourself to mine and have searched out my law, for you have devoted your life to wisdom and called understanding your mother. These are the people, again, the few people that I hope can hear some of the things that I share. This is the group you want to be in. There's just a bunch of lowlifes on earth. I'm not saying that to be rude. I've definitely done a lot of low-life-y kind of things for sure, and still to this day. But this is the kind of group and people we should care about their opinion. People like Esdras, because he only cares about God's opinion, only, exclusively. And then look how God compliments him. For you have devoted your life to wisdom and called understanding your mother. Therefore, I have shown you these things, for there is a reward laid up with the Most High. So the reward that God could give any of us for even small or large amounts of faith, what is the government going to give us for taking the mark of the beast? What reward is stored up for people who are stupid enough to take that? Consider these things, in this day. We should not even be around people who even think that that's something slightly cool. Just look down upon them. It's definitely okay to do that and avoid them if you can. Therefore, I have shown you these things, for there is a reward laid up with the Most High. For it will be that after 3 more days, I will tell you other things and explain weighty and wondrous matters to you. Then I got up and walked in the field, giving great glory and praise to the Most High for the wonders that he does from time to time. Imagine getting that compliment straight from God. Esdras obviously has been through a lot of stuff, but he's getting complimented from God. And then God's telling him other things. And so that's an interaction that none of these morons on earth, we would ever even care what these people think. This is the kind of thing that we should be striving for, even if it's the crumbs that fell off the table. I'll read 57 again. Then I got up and walked in the field, giving great glory and praise to the Most High for the wonders that he does from time to time. And because he governs the times and whatever things come to pass in their seasons. And I stayed there 3 days. God is control of everything. If it's not obvious to people already, it should be obvious to flat earthers, but flat earth has turned into just nonsense. 2 Esdras 14. The Lord commissions Ezra. On the 3rd day, while I was sitting under an oak, suddenly a voice came out of a bush opposite me and said, Ezra, Ezra. And I answered, here I am, Lord. And I rose to my feet. Then he said to me, I revealed myself in a bush and spoke to Moses when my people were in bondage in Egypt. And I sent him and led my people out of Egypt. And I led him up on Mount Sinai, where I kept him with me many days. I believe Moses is walking around on earth, and he's going to be doing the exact same thing that is described here, except Egypt will be America. And so don't be shocked if that is the case. I told him many wondrous things and showed him the secrets of the times and declared to him the end of the times. So he also told Moses the end of the times. So again, God would show him no matter what, because Moses is very, very exalted. But if you understand Revelation and can accept reincarnation, not many people can. What I share in my PowerPoint, Moses is one of the 2 people that are very, very involved in the end times. And it looks like here, God has told him this a long time ago. He knew that he was going to play a part in it, a very important part. I told him many wondrous things and showed him the secrets of the times and declared to him the end of the times. So there are people that know certain things. Then I commanded him, saying, these words you shall publish openly and these you shall keep secret. There are other things that he knows that if anybody finds out, they might make a business out of it. They might do something improper with it. And so, God tells people certain things that can handle it. And now I say to you, lay up in your heart the signs that I have shown you, the dreams that you have seen and the interpretations that you have heard, for you shall be taken up from among mankind, and henceforth you shall live with my son and with those who are like you until the times are ended. So again, God is showing Esdras how much he cares. Esdras has to be walking around here on earth then. So he's saying here that, for you shall be taken up from among humankind. Taken up means you will be, quote, raptured. And henceforth you shall live with my son and with those who are like you until the times are ended. And so the end times are not when the first rapture happens. That's the beginning of the end times. And, God is saying to Esdras here, you will be in that group. And then the end comes at the end. The gospel needs to be preached to all the world, through the two witnesses. And I like how he says, shall live with my son and with those who are like you. We want to be like Esdras. A majority of the people on earth are completely brain dead, just zombies, and religious and non-religious. So aspire to be somebody like Esdras. His characteristics are actually not that outlandish. He cares about people. Wow, that's incredible. He can take, instructions from God. He's getting compliments from God. He cares about why we're here, and those kind of things. He sets his mind on, like the Bible said in the past chapter, he made his mother wisdom, and that kind of thing. And so what else is there to think of? There's nothing else intelligent going on except being anxious for God's return. The age has lost its youth and the times begin to grow old. So now God is actually getting very specific in this about the end being soon. The age has lost its youth and the times begin to grow old. We can see just by the decay of the earth that we're in the end times. For the age is divided into 12 parts, and 9 of its parts have already passed, as well as half of the 10th part. 9.5. This is Ezra's time. That 9.5 of 12, God is saying that that's in the past. There's only 2.5 left. And so this should give us some sense of what's going on, and Esdras was not around, it was a while ago, this interaction happened many, many years ago. So God does things in a very structured way. So he's saying there are 12 parts, 9.5 have already passed, and 2.5 parts remain. Now, therefore, set your house in order and reprove your people, comfort the lowly among them, instruct those that are wise, and now renounce the life that is corruptible. This is for all of us. This is all I can do on this channel is give people hope, I guess, that we're on God's right-hand side. And then to do this, I'm just reading this and then turning around here on YouTube and wherever saying the same thing, renounce the life that is corruptible. There is nothing. I've checked in every single nook and cranny. I promise you, there's nothing going on here that is interesting. Absolutely nothing. And so it's wise for all of us to really pay attention to this. And now renounce the life that is corruptible and put away from your mortal thoughts, cast away from you the burdens of humankind and divest yourself now of your weak nature. God is very caring. He knows that we're in a weak state. He made us this way. He's not dumb, like the way a majority of people think that he is and portray him to be. Verse 15, lay to one side the thoughts that are most grievous to you and hurry to escape from these times. God is saying, you're wise to do that. You should not want to be here, and for people who can accept, this is hell. This is the worst. This is the expression of God's evil, his most creative expression of evil. And so he's saying to Esdras, who understands this, and hopefully other people do, hurry to escape these times. For evils worse than those that you have now seen happen shall take place thereafter. He's talking about the days that we live in right now, and it's only going to get worse. From the weaker the world becomes through old age, the more evil shall be increased upon its inhabitants. So the decay of the earth, God's actually turning up the evil. He's doing that so it's obvious to us. He doesn't want this to be a mystery. As much as people think the book of Revelation is difficult, the Bible is difficult, I'll make it clear, and if anybody, we don't have to do it publicly. If you want to do like a session, we can speak openly. It doesn't have to be recorded. It's clear, the Bible, and I'm not saying that I'm not trying to get money off this. There's no like PayPal link or none of that. What I share, it will always be free because we're living in those days. I can't say that more stern, just consider, what I'm sharing in that and what I posted recently. God is saying that the evils are going to start ramping up. If they're not bad already, if you're tired and sore and people ripping you off and like your boss is a prick, it's going to get worse, And so what is happening when these elect are taken away? That's why all these people have been automating everything, automating trucks, automating restaurants, because they know a group of people are going to be taken away. And then there's going to be just panic. They're going to need more and more, quote unquote, automation. They're going to treat more and more of people who are remaining as robots. And then they're literally going to try and put a chip in people. And so that's where we're headed, And so I just, as a friendly warning, the thing that's going to kick that off is a group of people, the only people that are honest on earth from A to Z, they're going to be taken away. What do we have left? This is not a shot because I might be in that group remaining. Like, what's left then? There are people who are half-truthers, So we have to understand this is the way the world's going. God is going to remove the people that are not allowed to tell a lie. So they're gone now. So what's left? I hope people, the Bible says many people will be woken up in those days. God's going to give them visions. God's going to give a lot of wisdom. But the purest people are now taken away. All the people who want to defend other people, who don't want to tell a lie, and all those people are gone now. And so then you just have a bunch of ball earthers, and a bunch of Satanists and stuff like that, people who go along with the government. So that's the world that we're headed towards, and shortly, if you have an ear to hear. And it literally says that here, for weaker the world becomes through old age, the more evil shall be increased upon its inhabitants. Right on cue, verse 18, truth shall go further away and falsehood shall come near. Right on cue, truth shall go away. So everybody that is a truth, quote, real truther is not able to lie. God's taking them out. And so if we're not in that group, it doesn't hurt to tell the truth, and I just say that I know it's difficult because we're forced to lie to pretty much do anything. But those are the people that are going to be taken away. And then that's going to be the end times. And it makes sense that has to be the end times because there's going to be half truths left. And then those people who have discernment will not be stupid enough to take the mark of the beast. I'll read 18 again. It's powerful. Truth shall go further away and falsehood shall come near. Think about the times that we live in now. Just imagine a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, are the fake news and the propaganda decreasing? And so think about just literally right now, we think that we live on a spinning ball. We think that the Jewish people in Israel are the real Jews. We have the quote, real Jews outside barking at people, have no idea what's going on. We have pastors, a majority of the Christian church doesn't even know that Jesus is black and they don't care and they will never acknowledge that. Look at the world, in terms of the truth, that's here right now. So it's going to increase. And so this is why we have to be sort of spiritually prepared for this because it's not going to get better. We're reminded of that here. For the eagle that you saw in the vision is already hurrying to come and it's here, for sure. We see the fruit of its labor everywhere. I'll talk to you. I'll address the rapture doctrine in a second. It's not false. I don't know how much of the Bible you know. It's true and it's everywhere. It's here in 2nd Esdras, and it's all over the book of Revelation, and Jesus says it out of his mouth. So I'll talk about that in a second. Okay. Then I answered and said, let me speak in your presence, Lord, for I will go as you have commanded me, and I will reprove the people who are now living, but who will warn those that will be born hereafter? Look, again, this we have to understand. Think about this person that God's interacting with. These are the people that God cares about. Esdras not only cares about, obviously, himself, in his mind, the people around him, then he's worried about people who are going to be in the future, and so we can't be exactly like Esdras because he's like a hero in the faith, but think about the way his mind works, just trying to understand this and correlate that to the stuff that we see going around in us and in the world. Now he's like, what about the people in the future? For the world lies in darkness and its inhabitants are without light. So he's in darkness now and he's saying it's going to get worse. And so now he's worried about them. He's worried about us, really, the people that live right now. For your law has been burned, and so no one knows the things which have been done or will be done by you. we think, and I'm putting myself in this, we think all that stuff in like Egypt and all that was a joke, like God actually did all those plagues through Moses and all that. We just think, whatever, it's a cool story. We can't imagine that will happen now and then even, quote, double down and be done by two people who look like they're homeless, on the streets of America. So he's worried about this. People will miss the boat, literally. Verse 21, I'll read again. For your law has been burned, and so no one knows the things which have been done or will be done by you. If then I have found favor with you, send the Holy Spirit into me, and I will write everything that has happened in the world from the beginning, and things that were written in your law, so that people may be able to find the path, and that those who want to live in the last days may do so. So he's, out of his own charity, he will write down the things that he's receiving for us to read literally right now, January 4th, 2020. He answered me and said, go and gather the people and tell them not to speak you for 40 days, but prepare for yourself many writing tablets and take with you Sariah, Debria, Selemia, Athanas, and Asiel, these 5 who are trained to write rapidly, and you shall come here and I will light in your heart the lamp of understanding. God communicates with us directly. He does not need a mark of the beast, any of that nonsense. For God's people, the stuff that I share will just be common sense. Which shall not be put out until what you are about to write is finished. And when you have finished, some things you shall make public, and some you shall deliver in secret to the wise. That's a gift for the people that are close. It may not be propagated to us in this day. It may just be things that God has given them or understanding of the world and different things. Deliver in secret to the wise. Tomorrow at this hour you shall begin to write. Ezra's last words to the people, verse 27, then I went as he commanded me, and I gathered all the people together and said, hear these words, O Israel. At first our ancestors lived as aliens in Egypt, and they were liberated from there and received the law of life, which they did not keep, which you also have transgressed after them. Then land was given to you for a possession in the land of Zion, but you and your ancestors committed iniquity and did not keep the ways that the Most High commanded you. And since he is a righteous judge, in due time he took from you what he had given. And now you are here, and your people are further in the interior. If you then will rule over your minds and discipline your heart, you shall be kept alive. And after death, you shall obtain mercy. For after death, the judgment will come. So when we die, our spirit, quote, leaves our body. And it says when we shall live again. And so there's many examples of reincarnation. I have a video on my channel. I could make it 3 times as long, with the stuff that I've come across recently, but it's in the Bible. Don't be offended by it. Majority of people teaching the Bible are not spiritual in the first place, but we have evidence of that here, and it's everywhere. The entire book of Revelation and then the entire Bible is useless if a person cannot accept that, because it's everywhere. For after death, the judgment will come. I believe we're living in the final one. And when we shall live again. And then the names of the righteous shall become manifest, and the deeds of the ungodly shall be disclosed. The Bible says in Revelation that all the books that are used to stack up the deeds of the left-hand side will be opened, before the firmament. But let no one come to me now, and let no one seek me for 40 days. So the restoration of the scriptures, verse 37. So I took the 5 men as he commanded me, and we proceeded to the field and remained there. And on the next day, a voice called me, saying, Ezra, open your mouth and drink what I give you to drink. So I opened my mouth, and a full cup was offered to me. It was full of something like water, but its color was like fire. I took it and drank it, and when I had drunk it, my heart poured forth understanding, and wisdom increased in my breast, for the spirit retained its memory. And my mouth was opened and was no longer closed. Moreover, the Most High gave understanding to the 5 men, and by turns they wrote what was dictated, using characters that they did not know. They sat 40 days, they wrote during the daytime, and ate their bread at night. But as for me, I spoke in the daytime and was not silent at night. So people, if they're wondering about what I'm sharing in Revelation about 2 people here in America preaching the gospel to the world, God is, I suspect, going to give these people to speak every language. If anybody comes up to them and talks to them in whatever language, they'll be able to tell them. They'll be able to tell them personal things about their life and all that kind of stuff. So here God is doing it by offering something for Esdras to drink, but God can give people any kind of information and skill that is needed to execute his plans. Verse 44, so during the 40 days, 94 books were written. And when the 40 days were ended, the Most High spoke to me, saying, make public the 24 books that you wrote first, and let the worthy and the unworthy read them. But keep the 70 that were written last. in order to give them to the wise among your people. For in them is the spring of understanding, the fountain of wisdom, and the river of knowledge. And I did so. So, I would say, my channel is controversial, I guess. It's not really controversial to me because these things are obvious, but, the next little while, I guess, the stuff that I'll post is really my last bit to offer for people who are interested, and I suspect it's even potentially a smaller group that find the stuff that I already have up there interesting, because it's going to be very concrete about what we're going to see, going forward. And especially if you're in America, you're going to have a front row seat to this. And, it's encouraging and amazing, to know that we may live in those times, but any normal person would be afraid of God interacting with us, whether collectively or individually. It's not the most pleasant thing, because any normal person would evaluate their life and all that kind of stuff. And, but ultimately for people out there, who are interested in God and the Bible and have deeper questions, those questions it looks like some of them are going to get answered soon. And, we're living in those days. So just for those, when I post my video on Revelation, probably be Monday, it's pretty long, not that many slides, maybe like 20 or something, but, just consider it. I stand by it. I don't need to really run it past anybody because it's just self-evident. I mean, it's just obvious actually. If a person looks for parallelism, consistency with Jesus and what he says, and then also knows what's going on, in the world and cares about God's laws. And I'm definitely not saying I'm Esdras, but I definitely care. I know what's going on in the world, and I understand that this world is completely against God. Thankfully, there looks like there's a group that he's preserved that do, honor the law. But aside from them, we see what's going on in the world, and it's complete folly. And it's just mockery of God on so many levels that has to be by design, and so there is no religious group anywhere at all, anywhere teaching the truth. The gospel is very close to just be just a joke. And so I believe that there is a small group, hopefully, people who come here were a part of it, where the Bible isn't a joke and we uplift it as true, and we only speak truth, and so I'm just saying, just because I've looked around, there's not many people, most people just don't care. They cannot imagine a God existing, much less actually interacting with the world, and interacting with the world through two homeless people, two poor people, like the Bible says in Revelation, dressed in sackcloth, prophesying, claiming to be, controlling the going on of the world, giving people who have the mark of the beast plagues, turning water into blood, putting blood in the water system and all that kind of stuff, administering God's judgment. That's outlandish to people. But again, for people who want to know what's about to happen, you will find some intellectual comfort there for sure. Oh, okay. Take a look at the chat. We always have a Mandela effector, man. The great deception has already happened by the devil. Delusions are sent by God to Mandalians. God is behind this. God is behind all of this. God takes credit for the left-hand side. He takes credit for the mark of the beast, and he's going to take credit for destroying them. The devil is a term that is used to describe spirits that live in bodies that God is ultimately going to destroy. And so I'm not trying to limit maybe to some truth that you're trying to share in that, but my worry is don't give the devil too much credit. It's not worth giving him any credit in the days that we live in now, because you should know, like, especially if you're a flat earther, you should know what's going on. I'm not trying to say this to be rude, but the world is a stage. Like, everything is scripted. And it's not scripted. Like, God didn't co-author our existence with the devil. He made the devil. And so, like, what's he gonna? And if he did co-author with somebody, why would he consult the devil? he made Jesus Christ, the most precious spirit to enter a human body. He would consult with him of anything. And I believe there was a co-creation. I'm not sure actually how that works, but ultimately, if God made anything, God made everything, then everything that flows from that is his creation. It has to be. That's obvious. And so, again, I'm not saying this to discourage you, Ronnie Foshi, but especially if you're a flat earther, you can share that, but it will, it's a low level comment. It will not stick here. Aliens or demons. I just don't believe in outer space or space aliens, and no Mandela effect is real. I mean, it's just Mandela effect is a room that you're going in that it's gonna bear no fruit. You're not gonna, God, wherever we want to go, God will just put us in that direction and further. And so you're going to be in a room with Brian Stavely, Karen B, and that kind of stuff. Like, what's the point of that? Like you're not going to get anything. Again, I'm not saying I have everything, but you're not going to get people who are aware of what's going on in the world and then, understand the things that God is about to do, and I think that this is a time, and again, I say this for all of us collectively, we should check in, with the God that made us. Don't believe in the Big Bang. Obviously, ball Earth is flying all over the place, and this and that. It's a time where we should all sort of collectively understand that our parents did not make us. God used them to create our human body, but that's not the extent of who we are.